This video is going to review the historical population growth of the human population. We can think of this in a few different stages. The stage preceding 10,000 years ago, which is sort of the prehistory of human beings. And during that time, it's thought that the population was about 5 million people. 2,000 years ago, another important change occurred, and that was some of the advances in agriculture were taking place, and the world population increased to about 200 million people. Then the Industrial Revolution occurred about 250 years ago, 300 years ago, and the population went up dramatically to about 6 million up to 1 billion. And today there are over 7 billion people. This timeline is offered in the following format by Biomass, showing three distinct eras of humans in their history: Paleolithic, the Neolithic, and the Industrial. And as you can see, the Paleolithic predates the year 10,000, the Neolithic follows it, and the Industrial era starts about 350 years ago, preceded by the Neolithic. If we look at the Paleolithic, the oldest time frame, up to 10 or 12,000 years ago, we can see through various forms of evidence that modern humans have been around at least 200,000 years. So a lot of our history as a species is actually kind of unknown and undocumented and characterized by hunting and gathering practices with high fertility and mortality rates, very slow population growth. And as we mentioned, world population at the end of that, and probably for much of the time during it, stayed at a steady 4 to 6 million people. And the size of population during that Paleolithic was largely a function of what was available ecologically in terms of biomass, and that is potential food sources. And you could see this other table by Biomass shows some of the different biomes of the world and the subsequent population density outcomes, as well as the number of persons. So the more biomass there is, the more people there can be. The Neolithic, which follows that, occurs on the heels of early agricultural breakthroughs. Of course, it's almost a misnomer to refer to anything as the agricultural revolution. This was actually a series of revolutions over hundreds and thousands of years. Of course, one of the big questions is, did agricultural revolution occur because of growth in the hunting and gathering populations? That's a possibility. So there's two different ways to look at that. So the era of our history called the Neolithic was largely a period of humans exploring and expanding out into different corners of the world and learning how to use the environment intensively to promote food growth and other forms of energy. And of course, the Industrial era is the time when we see most of the human population growth occur. If you look at this row right here, it shows you the number of people on the planet at different points. And you can see in 10,000 BC, there's about 6 million. By the year 0, there's about 252. It takes almost 2,000 years for that to get to 771. And then it only takes 200 years for that to triple. And from there, another 50 years to triple again. So this is nothing short of an exponential growth curve. You can see the annual growth rate increases with that. The doubling time shrinks quite impressively. The number of births actually peaks early on, but the birth percent that also peaks about 0 and has been coming down. Life expectancy has been increasing, and with increases in life expectancy usually coincides a lower rate of birth. And that's largely what's happening in the Industrial era. It's a huge explosion of population. We can even look at some of the earliest forerunners in the Industrial Revolution in terms of England, Netherlands, Germany, France, Italy, and Spain, and we could see their populations in 1600, 1750, and 1850 going up in a rather remarkable fashion. And that's where a lot of the early baby booms took place. So in summary, the history of human population growth has been a long period of low to no growth, followed by a slightly increased acceleration that happens coinciding with the emergence of agriculture, and then that, by the time the Industrial Revolution hits, precipitates a population explosion, to use the term of Paul Ehrlich. And this is nothing other than a exponential explosion. Of course, you could see it starts to curve. It doesn't really show too far into the future, but there is a projected leveling that takes place. So in reality, it's more of a logistic curve than an exponential one. Thanks for watching.